Tasle Dibeshla.
Tashitale Domala.
How are you, Dibeshla?
I'm good. Thank you. Tashitale everybody. So far, familiar faces. All right, Domala, go ahead.
Okay. Tasle, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Those who are living across the countries and with different time zones. So, welcome to the second session on Buddha nature, and the teaching series on Introduction to the Buddhism, which we consist of 24 different subtopics, and we are inviting different speakers with advanced knowledge on Nalanda Buddhist Studies. So normally this program aims at people who really wants to deepen their understanding and diverse their understanding on Buddhist disciplines in order to lay a basic foundation in Nalanda Buddhist Studies. This time, we have invited Mr. Dipesh Thakurji, Chief Coordinator of Nalanda Buddhist Studies International at Tibet House, New Delhi, who is going to speak on the second session, Buddha Nature. Despite of, thank you very much, Dipesh La, that despite of your other commitments and the very important other commitments and the busy schedule, you have accepted our request to speak on the Buddha nature. And thank you very much for that. And before I hand over to Mr. Dipeshla, I would like to give a brief introduction about him. That he had over 25 years of IT experience, ranging from technical, sales, management, and administrative, with work done in United States of America, Singapore, and Europe. And then since 2016, he's been working as a Chief Coordinator of Nalanda Buddhist Studies International at Tibet House, New Delhi. Thank you. And Dibishla, over to you.
Thank you, Domala. Thank you. Welcome you all. So I think I see familiar faces, so makes me a little more comfortable. This is my first talk under Tibet House banner. So anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank Venerable Geshe-la and Tibet House for giving me this opportunity. I think if you attended the first teaching on 12th April, which actually, again, I was the speaker, but unfortunately there have been medical emergencies in my family, which are still continuing. So Venerable Geshe-la very kindly agreed and took the first talk. So the main reason, this particular course, Intro to Buddhism, was created is largely I'm responsible, because when I started going to Tibet House in 2012, they were all the teachings of Venerable Geshe-la were like walking. So what would happen is that Geshe-la would be dealing with some text, let's say entering the middle way. That was the first text I went in. On Sundays, every time a new audience will come. So it was very difficult for Geshe-la as a teacher to go deeper, because every time a new face is coming. So then I requested Geshe-la for teachings where there is a little strict registration and he has a captive audience. So then what happened in 2016, we launched Master's Course, and from there, almost all Geshe-la's time went with registered courses only. So people with, who just want to walk in and learn about Buddhism, we kind of lost touch with them. So I think this is Geshe-la's idea, that this kind of an intro course is created, and students from NMC who have been with Geshe-la for a very long time, we are giving an opportunity. Although Dolmara said with advanced knowledge, I don't claim to have advanced knowledge, so I'm just a learner, and I'm happy to share what I've learned so far. A majority of my learning has come from Venerable Geshe-la, and also I've done a master's course from FEMT online. So there also two Venerable Geshe-las have been very, very kind, sharing their knowledge, and the online tutor. So I feel very, very fortunate to receive teachings from so many teachers. So that's the basic, in terms of why we created the intro course. So it's every 2 Tuesdays in a month. That's what we're going to do. You will see different speakers coming. So everybody has a different style. Some people will like some teachers, some people will like some other teachers. So hopefully, I think it'll work out better for everybody. The other thing, I think I see almost all familiar faces, but there are some who have switched off their video. In case you are new to Tibet House, I just would also like to mention that these kind of courses, and specifically Tibet House, will never be involved in any kind of conversion. This, I think, Venerable Geshe-la mentioned in the 12th April talk, that if you're a Hindu, if you're a Christian, if you're a non-believer, if you're a Jain, whatever you believe in, whatever your philosophy or outlook is, you continue being that. But, we use whatever, in this course to become a better human being, right? And in the first talk, I think Geshe-la very, very strongly emphasized that if we think through, um, this is something that I would like to mention, that Domala mentioned briefly about my career. So I was working in corporate world, a couple of years in US, couple of years in Singapore, and before that in India, and back again in India. So for many years, I actually struggled. Every day I would wake up, go to work. I was doing very well with my work. I used to enjoy that, but overall, I did not see like an aim. Why am I doing it? I felt completely lost. I don't know if some of you who are in the corporate world can relate to that. So I felt completely lost. And then, fortunately, my wife gave me a book on my birthday, The Art of Happiness by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, many, many years ago, before I was formally introduced to Buddhism. And it was like an eye opener. His Holiness just very simply presents that the purpose of life is to be happy, right? And it was such a simple message, but it had a profound effect on me. And this is what I think in the 12th April talk, Geshe-la mentioned, that the purpose of our life, if we think through, is to be kind to ourselves and to be wisely kind to ourselves, right? So many of you are from NDC, a couple of them I see from NMC. So it might be a message that might be over communicated, but I think the more it is communicated, the better it is, because we are quite bad with our habits that we tend to mix means with the end, right? For example, there are people who would say that money is everything, but you ask them what would happen if you get money, the amount of money you want, right? And then if you keep asking questions, whatever they are saying in terms of being means to be happy, they will mix the means and the end. So I would include myself, I don't know about you guys, but I would include myself that we are very bad with mixing means and ends. So if you are clear about what you want, then I think it makes sense. Then this kind of a talk, whoever is sharing it, myself or anybody, will only make sense that if you can relate to this. You have to start from where you are, right? So, and then this is one of the projects that I have kind of, on the writer side, that I am yet to meet a person who says, I don't want to be happy. Or I'm yet to meet a person who says that I want suffering. So has anybody come across anybody who says, I like suffering? Anyone? No? So there are people who claim to be sadistic. They say, no, I enjoy my suffering. Again, if you ask them, why do you like suffering? Because they are getting something out of it. So again, you can like cross question them. It will boil down to the same fact that they do want something. They may be confused about things, but they feel that that's their sense of some people feel kind of sorry for themselves if you kind of talk to them. But again, that's their outlook. I'm not judging them, but again, that makes them happy. The point I'm trying to convey, right? So now the question is, I think if there is anybody from modern psychology or modern sciences like counseling, psychology, psychiatry, is there anybody in that profession? Yes, Tenzin. Which profession you're from, Tenzin?
Good evening, everybody, especially sir. And I'm a medical student. Sir.
You're a medical student. Okay.
Yes, psychiatry is one
right.
subject of.
Okay.
Psychiatry.
Right.
We have science, means
Psychiatry
psychology.
is one of the subjects. So
yes.
one of the issues with psychiatry is that, which I think is changing after His Holiness as kind of the Mind and Life program. If people are aware about it, there is some change, but which is called positive psychology. But why I was bringing psychiatry is people will go to a psychiatrist only when they have a problem. If we think we are normal, but let's say you have a what your normal is, or let's say any person A's normal is that more or less, they're not like very joyous in their life. They don't have any major problems. But if you think from a potential perspective, let's say they have the potential to be 100% happy 24/7. Let's say, let's start there. Does anybody go to a psychiatrist and say, hey, I feel normal, but I don't feel joyous to the maximum potential that I have? Nobody does that, right? So here, the topic being Buddha nature, I'm kind of, so if, we'll talk about Buddha nature, what Buddha nature is, but what, again, this word Buddha, it may sound religious, but the Sanskrit meaning is the fully awakened being, right? So if what Buddha taught is true, and that another thing is that Buddha taught, he was very scientific in his outlook. By scientific, I mean very open-minded, and he did not ask people to follow blindly. He said, I teach this, if it makes sense to you, and if you can apply and bring it to your life, then only follow me. So this is something so fantastic, right? So we don't have to be blind followers. And that's why I'm saying, if what Buddha taught, and you have to scrutinize it, that this Buddha nature, Geshe-la spoke very briefly in the 12th April, session about this potential, the seed of perfection, the potential, right? And that's the topic today. So, so if we start from where we are, are we like free from all types of miseries or potential of miseries? If anybody says, yeah, I've had more or less normal life, are you sure you're going to have normal life? And specifically the pandemic, right? In the pandemic, I think one should have got convinced that there are factors beyond one individual's control, and it can really disrupt people's life at a mass level, right? At a very global level, right? So are we really free of suffering? Are we really free of miseries, or the potential for miseries? And are we like 100% happy the way we can be? So this, I think there are two aspirations that Venerable Geshe-la touched upon in the 12th April class, and he often speaks about quite a lot, and which makes perfect sense, that if you ask anybody, do you want suffering? The person will say no. Even a person who cannot communicate, and I mean like sentient beings, like even if animals who can't speak, and many of you I know have pets, here from NDC, you have your own pets that you probably know more confidently about your pet. Despite they not being able to speak, you are convinced that they don't want suffering. Small things that make them happy, right? So even animals can demonstrate this ability to avoid suffering and want happiness, right? So going back to this positive psychology that I'm saying, that we only go to a psychiatrist, or people that know that go to a psychiatry or a counselor when there's a problem, right? Why not we go and say that, hey, I'm not living to my full potential, can you help me? And they'll be confused. I can guarantee that. Hey, you don't have a problem, why did you take my appointment? I can only deal with problems, right? But what Buddha's approach was very different. Buddha's approach was that, we have this potential, and when we get this human life, and when the conditions are right, and that particular opportunity is called precious human life, that when you have a human life and you can practice something to transform your mind, to take you closer towards 0% suffering and 100% happiness. If that is possible, that is so wonderful, right? Is there somebody who like very strongly believes, I don't know, at least at one stage before I started listening to Buddhism, I had this very strong belief that, yeah, I have a little bit of anger once in a while. I know my weaknesses. So if I communicate to my family that please don't avoid these things, that makes me highly irritable, that's who I am. So implicitly, I was saying that this cannot be changed, that irritation, that anger within me, on certain conditions, more or less, I'm quite okay. but there are certain conditions which trigger that. So that's an intrinsic nature that I have, right? So there are some people who say that, yeah, I get anxious, I can't help it. Yeah, I get a little sensitive around these area, I can't help it. This is who I am, right? So this is what the Charles Darwin theory, which again, Venerable Geshe-la touched on 12th April, that we have certain instincts, and those instincts actually protect us, and they're good to have. With the short-term look, it's perfectly fine. But if you take a really long-term look, which Buddha took, a long-term look, then, you can easily question it, right? For example, anger. During the moments of anger, are you happy? Whatever your reasons to anger be, there could be somebody can say, yeah, it's justified, he did this, she did this. There are social activists who say, yeah, this anger is justified. There are so many issues in society, completely agree, gender inequality, racism, all kinds of caste systems, and which have been prevalent in India. There are horrible issues to deal with, right? But is anger the right response? And if you speak to social actors, they'll say, yes, anger is the right response, right? If you don't get angry, you're not human. They'll even justify to that extent, right? So, but the question I'm asking is that when you're angry, are you in a perfect state of mind to deal with that problem? Are you happy? No, right? You're not happy. You're not happy. Yeah, thanks, Ajit. So the issue is that if there's a problem, then with a calm mind, the chances of solving the problem is much higher rather than being angry or being with some kind of upset mind, right? So when we're talking about this, going back to this point, so anger, jealousy, all these negative emotions, if we are so accustomed, we might think it's our intrinsic nature. But Buddha said, no, it's not, right? This is not our intrinsic nature, right? So the intrinsic nature, our intrinsic nature, there is a potential, the seed of perfection, which with correct causes and condition, it can germinate into a fully awakened being, right? Despite like who the person is, whatever the gender, whatever the caste, whatever the nationality, whatever your belief system. If you're looking for 0% suffering, if you're looking for 100% happiness. And that's why I'm qualifying that one should be able to first get this starting ground that, do I want that? And if we feel like, okay, my life is okay, then we have to reflect on some realities which might be a little upsetting, but those are realities. Can we avoid aging? Can we avoid sickness? And then can we avoid death? At some stage, I think Tenzin Yeshila looks youngest to me in this group, and Tenzin Dolmala. Rest all, I think we would have seen some amount of death. Close family, relatives, somebody you would have faced that has passed away. Guaranteed. Right? So, can you avoid it? Right? It's unavoidable, but then when a loved one goes, the pain is tremendous. Right? And then finally, we have to think about our own selves, that we have to leave this body. Whether we believe in rebirth or not, the fact is that this is what Buddha taught in the first noble truth. Geshe-la touched the four noble truths. So, if we say that our life is okay, no big deal, I don't want to think about suffering, I don't want to think about it, you will be hit sometimes. Unavoidable. That's why Buddha started with the first noble truth. He didn't say that everything is suffering. That's not correct. We can transcend this. We can achieve a state which is called sorrowlessness. Transcendental state. Uncontaminated happiness. And by the way, I don't know if there was a article on BBC a few years ago. If you just Google, death, Bhutan, happiness. So they did a survey and they found people in Bhutan are much happier than other countries, and one of the reasons attributed is that they actively think about death. So if you think that, okay, if you think about these kind of things, it can be depressing. It's actually depressing because if you don't take it the right way. One way can be, yeah, it's going to happen. So I have whatever time I have, why don't I make most of it? If you take it like this, then actually the life can be much more enjoyable, rather than more fearful. So you can just Google, like BBC, on bbc.com, there's an article, Bhutan, happiness. I don't remember the whole article, but I think Google is quite good, so you should be able to get that hit, right? So, so we do have this potential. For sure, we do have this potential. Buddha said so. How do I believe that I have this potential? That would be a question. The other question would be, okay, if I have this potential, then why doesn't it become manifest on its own? What is that it's blocking, right? If people believe in rebirth, there are people from the Asian countries who believe in rebirth, then probably, you can also question very strongly that, I have so many rebirths, then how come this potential is not manifest? That would be a very valid and a very strong question, right? So, the answer to that is, again, we have to check this, that, I would present it in a slightly different and a simple way. And His Holiness often mentions this in his books and his writings, that we have suffering because, one, we are not connected with reality, the way reality is. Second, we have an extra self-centered attitude. If we think through these two causes, these are the two causes which broadly are blocking our potential, right? And we can go into technical details later. This being an intro course, I'm just making it more simple terms right now, and then we go into the technical terms later. So we have this extra self-centered attitude, which, at some extent, self-centered attitude is fine. Again, this is again an English word where some people will take self-centered attitude as in a very negative connotation. But if you think through carefully, right, that you do need to take care of your own self to some extent. That's the reality, right? So this is why I think in some of the books that His Holiness presents is that extra self-centered attitude, right? That I am more important than others. I'm important. I have to take care of myself. I think that's valid. Nothing wrong in it. You can't start with a ground where you say, hey, listen, you know what? There are millions of people who are hungry. So from tomorrow, I'll feed them. Then only I'll eat my breakfast. Not possible. Not possible. And it's not practical. Probably after 2 days, 3 days, you will be hospitalized or you'll just collapse. That's not very wise too, right? So we have to just question this, right? That what is this extra self-centered attitude, right? And one of the best ways is to maybe recollect any compassion that we've received, whatever level. I don't know, it's difficult to judge whether that act of compassion that you were the recipient, how genuine it was, right? I remember a time, somehow, again, it's on the lighter side, but also funny side. I don't know if you know, our human body scientifically is about 100 trillion cells. Out of the 100 trillion cells, 95 trillion cells are bacteria. So if you consider your body yourself, that this is my body, 95% is not like human. It's all bacteria, right? So this could be another example that how disconnected we are from reality. That how interdependent we are in terms of our existence. But we tend to think that, hey, this is the page, I have my body, I have my own free will, I can eat, I can sleep, I can do whatever I want. Little bit of that bacteria, here and there, balance, things can go haywire, right? So why about bacteria was that I had a kidney stone surgery, and then things went bad. And after that, I was put on antibiotics for about like 2-3 months. So I often jokingly told my doctor, he doesn't believe in it, my urologist, that I can vouch for it that for that long antibiotics, it made me really depressed. At that time, I didn't have any Buddhism or anything to change my outlook. So I was like pretty normal life. And so I would often, tell my doctor that when I'm on antibiotics, I feel depressed. So there has to be a role of bacteria and mental health. So this is not a researched area, but I'm fairly confident if they research, something will come out. So why I'm bringing this is act of compassion, right? So I was extremely depressed those days, and one of my wife's cousin, uh, he and his wife came to meet me, and we had a cup of coffee, and the couple just gave me a simple hug. We met after they stay in Singapore, and so we met after 6-7 years, and they were visiting Delhi, and I was at Delhi at that time. So I was so depressed that a simple hug just made me so happy for weeks. It was like a 2-second hug, completely unexpected, and it made me so happy, right? So I'm just saying a mundane experience of, it was just a very warm hug, right? So if you want to uh, if you want to relate this to your personal experiences where you were a recipient of some amount of kindness from somebody, why I'm raising this is that if you feel that, okay, when I received the kindness, it made me happy, right? Or you were a giver of that compassion, how did you feel? So this extra, when we have this extra self-centered attitude, it's impossible for you to be kind. Of course, you can be a recipient of somebody's kindness, but you yourself will not be able to develop a heart or do any action for others, right? So if you can relate this to your experiences, then all these talks, they become more meaningful. One of the, nothing to demean about anybody else, but often these days in the interconnected world, you get a lot of these positive messages in WhatsApp or things like that. If you are using WeChat, so you just get a message, be positive. That's it. How to be positive? What are the steps, right? So you have to go deep into psychology, and that's where we are trying to go to discover this Buddha nature, right? That if I want to be, if there's a possibility to be 100% happy and to have a life without suffering, then the causes that I'm being told are that I'm not connected with reality, number one, and there is this extra self-centered attitude that I have. You have to check that. Nobody is judging you. Be objective, keep your emotions aside, and check that. Is it true? And if it is true, there were moments where I was not this self-centered. I expressed some amount of kindness, or I was recipient of kindness. How did I feel? Right? So this could be one very simple way of checking. Obviously, if you go into technical details, there's much more to discovering, our full potential, the seed of potential. But this is something that we can. Do you want to remain in an environment with friends and family where people don't care about you? Or would you like to remain in an environment where people around you, whoever, you can have your room partner, even if you stay alone with your pet, right? What kind of environment would you want? Of course, I would say that, where there are people, warm-hearted people, that I feel, you know, loved and I can express freely. There's a sense of little bit of freedom. I should not feel constricted. If there are people around who are extremely self-centered around you, you automatically feel constricted. That is something, again, you can check, right? So if I feel constricted with a self-centered person, and if I express my self-centered attitude all the time, then I'm constricting other people, right? It's vice versa. So we have to think about these 2 points, right? So, and then technically speaking, I would introduce that, why this potential is not manifest, because our mind is with defilements, right? So, Geshe-la gives a very interesting example that when anger comes, does it come like, okay, I have to get angry, let me think what I have to speak, let me get back to this person in the most vicious way. What would be the most vicious way? Option A, option B, option C. Does the mind work like that, or it's so spontaneous, right? It's so spontaneous, immediate, without any thought processes, right? So we've habituated with these negative emotions and they come out so easily. But with kindness, for most people, I don't know about you, it has to be cultivated, right? At least with the near day ones, it will come, but with the neutral beings and with the people you don't know, quite difficult, right? So, for example, just recently, myself and my family, this talk was supposed to happen last week. I was down with COVID. I thought I'll recover, but it was quite a bad Tuesday. Me and my family, everybody was down with fever. So on my wife's side, her sisters, a couple of friends, they just, and my nephew also, who stays in Gujarat, he just volunteered. Hey, you guys are down with COVID, all of you, I'll come and help. It's wonderful that, I appreciate the kindness. But then question arose in my mind. Would they offer the same help to their neighbor? Somebody that they don't know. Somebody is down with COVID. Will they have the same courage that, okay, it's a COVID home, no issues, I'll get it, but I have to help my uncle, I have to help my sister, right? At least they are doing. I'm not judging them, but this is something that we define our circle of love, we define our circle of compassion, and within that, the mind and heart flows freely, right? And provided everything is okay. If I had scolded my nephew 3 days ago on something that he's not studying well, I don't know whether he would have called me and said, Uncle, I'll come and help you. I seriously doubt that. I'm sure he's going to listen to this later. So yeah, buddy, you listen to this, and I'm going to question you when we speak on the phone, right? So that's how I think we can grow, both of us. So anyway, so this is something that we have to check, right? That does the mind flow? But if we think through, right now we are having this WebEx. What are all the factors making this possible? We should have electricity, we should have internet, my throat should have been okay enough that I can speak. You should not have any ear infection, otherwise you can't listen, right? There should be, we've had friends from, Ukraine in our NDC courses, couple of them. I don't know when they will join, right? You're not being bombed. You have eaten your food, right? So if we think through, okay, for food, right? We need farmers, we need logistics, we need people, wholesalers, we need retailers. You need, if you're ordering groceries online, you need all that. Just to enjoy, let's say, if you enjoy your morning cup of tea, cup of coffee, or a glass of juice, you need literally millions of people behind working properly. Now, this is the level of interdependence that we need for our just bare existence. I'm not saying that to be happy, right? Just imagine yourself, right now in eastern Ukraine. All this is impossible. I would have said no. I think Dolmana would have not called me. Krishna, will you give the talk? Is everything okay? Right? I would have never got this call. Right? So this is the level of interdependence that we exist, and we are completely disconnected from it. If not completely, majority portion we are disconnected from it. If you seriously think about like small things that make things our life comfortable, if you're sitting on a cushion, if you're sleeping on a comfortable mattress, where all that comes from, right? So, and life can change in a split second, right? So I remember our Geshe-la's teacher, principal, TCV school, Dharamshala, Venerable Geshe Pema Dorjila. He gave a talk. I think people from NMC might remember, Joya ji, Neeraj ji from NMC, 7-point mind training. And Fritzla is also here. I'm not sure. Elaine La probably from NDC 1. So, So, Venerable Geshe Pema Dorji Lord spoke about his experience in 59. He became exiled, and I think it was a family of 8, 9 people, and everybody had severe stomach upset. They were somewhere on the border area as refugees. He was 8, 9 year old. He had to go and beg for food. He had to take care of 8, 9 people. So as an 8, 9 year old, he was begging for the food every day, cooking for them, and then sleeping under a tree using his slippers as a pillow. And he said that after so many weeks, when he got just a simple bed to sleep, some school, Indian government put these refugees, Tibetan refugees. He says, it was one of the most peaceful feeling I had. Who knows what happens to us? We're sitting in India, we think we're comfortable. Way Russia invaded Ukraine, China can invade India. China has all those intentions, right? China has been very aggressive, speaking about, trying to increase their landmass. Who knows we are next, right? So this is the level of interdependence. So if we think through that, why we are not happy, because we are disconnected. And what Buddha taught, as we will learn in the 4 seals, a topic later. So all composite things, in simple words, what our sense consciousness interact with, they are undergoing a constant change. And we are unaware of it. Of course, we are unaware of it. What change will hit us, we have no idea, right? The pandemic is a classic example. November 2019, I was reading newspaper, there's some virus in Wuhan. And I was thinking, okay, something is happening in China. I did not know, like 5 months, 6 months later, the whole India will be locked down, the whole world will be under lockdown, right? So that's the level of ignorance that we carry. So this is the reason, these are the 2 reasons that if we think through in terms of our ignorance, there are various kinds of ignorance. So this level of ignorance I'm saying is not knowing this basic thing of interdependence. And if we connect with this interdependence, naturally our mind calms down. Our mind also opens up, right? We are more open. So, the more I've thought about this interdependence, sometimes, there's a garbage man who comes in the morning to collect the garbage. We stay on the first floor, so I have to drop the garbage on the ground floor. So sometimes I wake up early in the morning, and from my balcony, I can see him. And since I've reflected on this interdependence, I feel tremendous kindness. I don't know him. So I really don't know him. But since I've reflected, just imagine 4 or 5 days. I don't know, it's difficult to imagine in the Western world. But India, it's quite possible to easily imagine. Your garbage person doesn't come and pick it up, right? How filthy and how smelly everything can get, right? Even to enjoy a little bit of clean environment, you need these people in society. They may be unwell. Of course, we can question that. He has no intention to benefit you or anybody. He's just doing his job. Somebody can put this question. Point taken. Completely point taken. But the question is, if that person is not working, what will be your state? Right? What will be your state? So we have to reflect on this, the interdependence part and this extra self-centered attitude that we carry, right? And then we can work towards it. This is not matter of judging anybody or judging ourselves, right? It doesn't help. It doesn't help, everything is dependently originated. So even this state that we are, if we apply proper factors to it, we can transform it. Why? Not because Buddha is saying, or you are in this talk and I'm saying, or some teachers have said it. No, you should be convinced that, listen, I want to be happy, and if I try this, does it make me happier or does it not make me happier? Does it make me have a peaceful mind? Lots of things are not in my control. Fine, but at least this part is in my control. A wise person will look at it from that perspective, right? So many enlightened beings have come on this earth. If you talk about all religions, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Jainism, in Hinduism, I don't know, there's so many gods, so many gods, right? So if you talk about that, so many beings, Sikhism, have so many of these enlightened beings, Jesus Christ, Buddha, Mahavir, Guru Nanak Ji, Lord Krishna, Lord Rama. There's a whole huge list. If all the factors could have been fixed, they were the best guys to fix it, right? All the factors which are external factors, if they could have been fixed, why did they not fix it when they came on earth, right? Why did they leave things as they are? And probably they are worse. A lot of factors are worse than when they were there, and a lot of factors are much better than they were there. Both things are there. So the reality remains that there are external factors and there are internal factors. Impossible to even count the external factors. Impossible. Forget trying to control them, right? So a wise person will think from a perspective that, listen, it's about my happiness. You have external factors, you have internal factors. So I can do what is in my control. That's much better rather than trying to struggle with things which are impossible, like external factors, right? So, and then internal factors are within our control. But why these internal factors? What are these internal factors which are blocking us? Now we go a little bit technical, since this is the intro to course, most of you are from the Nalanda courses. I don't know about Tenzin Yeshila. Are you part of NDC? Oh, no. No. Okay. This is the first one. Sanjeev is my college friend, so I know he would like, he's from engineering background, so you like the technical words. So rest you already know the technical words. So what is blocking us is afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. So obscuration in English, if is just something obscure. So this is a label used. You have to know the label, which is a technical label, and the meaning behind it. And I would say meaning is more important right now because this is an intro course. So afflictive obscurations are something which consists, you can broadly speaking say, contaminated karmas and afflictions, right? So afflictions, for people joining, affliction is defined as a mental state which disturbs the mind, any mental state, right? And as you grow watching your mind, or in this advanced psychology, there are certain mental states which you right now will identify as, no, this does not disturb my mind. Later on you will identify that, oh yeah, this also disturbs the mind. For example, if you've been to a very noisy place, right, where, I don't know, like you have to sleep in the night and neighborhood is very, very noisy, right? So versus a neighborhood which is medium noisy, and then versus something very peaceful. So from a very noisy place, when you go to a medium noisy place, you will feel very peaceful, and you'll say, this is fine, perfectly fine, I can sleep here, with this level of noise, because you got used to that, right? So until and unless you experience the very peaceful state, you will not be able to classify this medium noisy or a very little noisy place as a noisy place, right? So similarly, afflictions, there are very, very broad categories. You have afflictions like anger. Everybody will say, it disturbs my mind, right? There are certain amount of mental states where somebody might identify them, no, I like it, and this mental state I want to encourage. But if you're looking for 100% happiness and 0% suffering, or total state of fearlessness, both I would say are synonymous, that you basically are not afraid of anything coming into your way in future. If you're looking for that, then you have to see that those mental states are also a state of disturbance for mind, right? So afflictive obscurations, broadly speaking, are contaminated karmas, not all karmas, contaminated karmas, and afflictions. And if you want to go more technically correct, the active seeds. In our mind, we have seeds which give rise to certain mental states and make us do actions. Karma is nothing very esoteric. Karma is something, any action related to body, speech, and mind that we do. But if they are contaminated, contaminated in terms of, we can understand in various ways, but right now, something it's not leading you towards your goal of fearlessness and 100% happiness. If it is not, then it's contaminated. We can keep it simple like that right now, for now. Okay. So those afflictive obscurations basically block us. Technically speaking, an afflictive obscuration is class of obscuration which block us from achieving a state of fearlessness. And cognitive obscurations are obscurations which block us from achieving this state of omniscience, infinite happiness. Right? So, Domala, I might need another 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm just asking your permission. I think we have till 7:30. I think we should be able to finish at 6:45. Let's see how it goes. It will be another 10 minutes. So let me speak about, which I was not planning, but it might be appropriate, Buddha's mind, because we're talking about Buddha nature, right? A Buddha's mind is something, we talk about omniscience. A Buddha's mind is literally present with every atom of the universe. In a single moment, Buddha is aware about everything that's happening in the universe, including my mind, our past, and our probable futures. Buddha is completely aware about this, and he or she doesn't need to make any effort. That's the true nature of mind, that the mind can know all phenomena simultaneously. Once we remove this obscuration, the mind becomes omniscient. These two obscurations, afflictive and cognitive obscuration. Right? So, not that our motivation should be bliss or joy, but Buddha's mind is 24/7 with this 100% happiness and joy. Cannot be separated, And often Buddha himself in the sutras mentioned that Buddha's mind is beyond conceptuality. That is impossible for ordinary beings or at a conceptual level to understand Buddha's mind. But we can attempt to put some qualities around Buddha's mind, right? And another way that we can understand Buddha's mind is a mind which is, perfect love, perfect knowledge, and perfect power. Right? There's nobody can harm Buddha. There can be an act which appears to be harming Buddha, but nobody can harm Buddha. This is another quality of Buddha. Right? There are amazing qualities of Buddha mentioned in the text, which probably won't be touched in the diploma course also, but in master's course, there are certain texts that, at Tibetas, when Geshe-la teaches, these Buddha's qualities are listed, So one should know, right, when we're talking about a fully awakened being, what does it mean by fully awakened being? Okay, I understand fearlessness. I understand 100% happiness. If it's possible, I want it. But then we can also look at from a result perspective, that when somebody achieves that goal, what that means, right? And then the most important part is Buddha's mind is capable of manifesting infinite manifestation. That's something like we may not be able to get our head around it, but if Buddha wants, and if we have the karmic connection, I would take my word back, because for Buddha the intention is not there. If we have the karmic connection, Buddha will manifest in front of us, which is most beneficial for us. Provided from our side, it's like the example given is that when the rain falls, when the rain falls, not every part of where the rain falls, the seeds germinate. Wherever the seeds are there, they will germinate. This is a very beautiful example given, right? And then people, from NDC, NMC, people who are just completely new can ignore the statement that, you've read about the 10 bhumis, right? The 10 bhumis, Mahayana bhumis. So the 10th bhumi, the name given is cloud of dharma. So this is a very beautiful analogy that, when the Bodhisattva reaches that level, it's cloud of dharma. That literally the rain falls and, wherever the seeds are, it will germinate. So from the point of view of the cloud and the rain, there's no discrimination. So similarly, a Buddha can manifest and benefit us if from our side we have purified ourselves. Right? So that's a quality of Buddha. For example, if anybody wants to benefit Mr. Putin right now and say, hey, war is not good, let's talk. Can you do something about it? The guy is not ready, right? He'll not listen, right? So I'm just giving a very current example, and that somebody wants to benefit him, even if His Holiness says that, yeah, I've been always a messenger of peace. I'd like to talk to you. I'm sure Mr. Putin has met His Holiness. I'm sure His Holiness is very wise. He'll not offer this, but as just a theoretical example, right? So the very simple way of understanding the karmic connection to receive benefit from His Holiness is missing in Mr. Putin right now, right? Not possible, no matter what you do, right? So this is the same way. If we also see situation around us, I've been part of group discussions in NDC, NDC2, NDC3 lately, not been attending, but I've heard this so many times from people, and there are some people present here, my friends, that I'm trying to help somebody, the person does not listen. Right? I know the person is on the wrong path. I know I can help. I'm being very kind-hearted. I'm trying my best to speak politely, yet the person does not listen. Have we faced this situation? Right? Heavy? Right? So the same thing, right? So we are no different. Buddha is no different. Buddha is fully perfected, can help us, yet, since we do not have, you're having your favorite coffee. If Buddha just manifests in front of you, say, hey, leave the coffee, I guarantee you 100% happiness. Will you leave your coffee? Right? So this is one of the question, one of my very dear friend from NMC, Ajirji, he's not present here. He would often throw this, throw this around that okay, you want to get out of samsara, you want to become a Buddha. But what if Buddha comes and says that drop everything, come with me right now. Don't even wear your shoes. Just come with me. Are you willing? Are you willing? Drop everything. Do you have that conviction? Yeah, you want nice things, but in action, will you walk with Buddha? Right? So that is something that you have to think about, right? So I'm not asking that you drop everything, but just to convince you that from Buddha's side, it's 100% perfect. It's from our side, things are missing. The hook is missing, right? So the text talks about very beautiful example about this Buddha nature. So let's say we have dirty water, right? I think Joyaji, Domala are from Delhi, so they would know the state of Yamuna River, right? If you've seen Yamuna River, how dirty the water is. It's supposed to be one of the sacred, Yamuna and Ganga are the sacred, Ganges and Yamuna, in English they say that they're horribly dirty right now, right? If somebody were to like just take a glass of water from Delhi Yamuna River, I would say, probably wear gloves also. It's so toxic, right? So if that water is presented, it has water and it has dirt. So my question is that what is the intrinsic nature of that water? What is the true nature of that water? Is it to be dirty, or is it a form of purity? Anyone? What would you say? Yes, David.
Intrinsic nature is purity.
Thank you. Yes, it's very pure, right? So, and then we can confirm it. We have these machines, reverse osmosis processes that we can take out all the dirt and keep it aside and make it very pure, right? So similarly, when we talk about, let's say, gold mixed with dirt, like gold mines, where people know that they do mining, there is probably 1%, 2% gold. Visually, you can't see, but then they know it's a gold mine, right? So again, that particular mass, if you remove the dirt and the gold, you can separate it, right? Okay. And then another classic example given in the text is sunflower seeds, right? So if you squeeze a handful of sunflower seeds, which have enough oil content, oil will come out. But if you squeeze just like simple sand, oil will not come out. So these are all examples given about Buddha nature and classic text, So similarly, our mind, right now it's defiled like the Yamuna River, but the intrinsic nature of this mind is very pure. This nature of mind, if we can get rid of the obscuration, it can become Buddha's mind. That is the potential. If you go to a psychiatrist, he or she will not believe it, right? But if you want 100% happiness and 100% fearlessness, then you have to study, get that conviction, and if it's possible, then this mind has tremendous potential, right? And again, talking about potential, there are so many examples just in our day-to-day life. There are people who have fantastic memory about things. I don't know if you've seen some documentaries, or if you had friends in college, school, who had wonderful memory. So I had a college friend, Sanjeev is not there, but I had a college friend. We have a common friend. He doesn't remember this, and Sanjeev is back here. So we had a college friend. He would remember people by their telephone numbers. When I was in college, there were no mobiles, there were only landlines. So in the morning, we had 48 students in the class. He would just call me not by my name, but by my landline number, right? So he had this amazing ability with numbers to remember the numbers, right? This is a very small example. I did not have that ability. How come he has it and I don't have it? And then if you talk about, the monastic system, like our Gishla, right? He comes from a monastic system. There, the emphasis on memorization is so high, right? They memorize. You can't receive teachings in a monastic institutes if you have not memorized the text, right? So if you want to study Pramanavartika, Acharya Dharmakirti's text, or any other text, Madhyamika Avtara, which is entering the middle way, first all the verses should be memorized by heart. Then only the teacher will entertain you in class, right? So I'm just giving an example of what this mind has a potential. We may not believe in it since we don't have experienced it, but different people have different capacities, which is so mind-boggling that some people can do so much, and the mind has the same potential, right, for everybody. So these are the examples. Then the other example given is of the charcoal, the sand and the charcoal. The charcoal intrinsically is black. If you try to remove the blackness from the charcoal, the whole charcoal will disappear. Not possible. But fortunately, the good news is that the mind is not like that. We have defilements of the mind which can be removed, and so if you really want to get conviction that what is the full potential, then we have to study emptiness, right? So emptiness, once you get the conviction, there are people from NDC, NMC, then you get full conviction that this is possible, right? And then that's a separate topic. We're not going to touch that today, but very briefly, emptiness is not something very, again, esoteric. It's the subtlest reality that if you get access to it, then the real transformation of mind starts. And it's not something that you have to believe in it. In fact, in one of the books or one of the talks, somebody had asked His Holiness that to realize emptiness, is it possible? Do we really have to be a Buddhist, or you have to do anything Buddhistic to realize emptiness? His Holiness very clearly said no. It's something like quantum physics. If you apply your mind and study it properly, you can get to it. Of course, there are other factors. He is not denying those other factors, but so to get full conviction in Buddha nature, that is what is required. But at this stage, I can say about simple thing like, do you believe, all of you, that you have some level of good quality within you? Be it 1%, 10%, a little bit of kindness, little bit of good heart, trying to be calm about certain things, trying to accept reality, forgiveness, patience. All these are great virtues, right? Do you have some level, right? And the answer would be yes. Even if we think the worst person in the world, whoever that person may be, Mostly if I ask, there'll be answers given would be either very, very personal or would be some politician, right? That would be the answer, that he or she is the worst person, right? Even the worst person has some good quality. We have to accept it. From your point of view, may not be, but if you're very objective, they have some good quality. So number one, do you have some good quality? Number two, if you see somebody better or somebody inspires with the right condition, do you think it can be developed further? The answer again would be yes. Your good qualities can be developed further. And with the third point is the inspiration. Let's say you meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or His Holiness is giving a talk, you attend a talk. Do you feel inspired? May not be His Holiness, could be anybody that you follow. There are people who may be following Sri Ravi Shankar. There are other religions. If you believe in Christianity, there are so many good qualities mentioned. Any religion that you follow, so some figure that can inspire you, right? So of course, so if these three things, if you're convinced, then you are convinced about your seed of perfection. So I'm presenting it very simply, right? That do you have good qualities? Do you think those good qualities can be increased? And when you see an inspirational figure, inspirational talk, do you feel like working on it? Does that inspiration help? Right? That is connecting you to that seed of potential. Okay. So now I would like to touch upon another important point, that in modern science and in modern, I think again we confuse something that we have to explore, which is matter and mind. And in matter, I will include body also. So from a neuroscience perspective, again, I'm not an expert there. The mainstay neuroscientists probably will say that mind or consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, right? From a science perspective. But you have to explore more. Venerable Geshe has given very, very fantastic talks. Probably after this, we can share some of the public talks where, he's presented very strong points that mind and matter are something very distinct. They can interact, they can influence each other, but mind and matter are separate. And that's very, very relevant to Buddha nature, because when we are talking about developing this potential, about to that 100% level, then getting this conviction that there is something called an entity mind, which is separate than the brain. According to me, that's like very, very closely related. These two topics, Buddha nature and getting conviction there's something mind. And in the Nalanda Buddhism, we're talking about, again, mind, consciousness. Different traditions, they present very differently. So we should be very open and not like take, okay, I learned at Tibet's talk, or I learned at a Nalanda course, mind means this. Don't take a very rigid point of view. If you're talking to a neuroscientist, or if you're talking to another tradition which use, because in Sanskrit, in Tibetan, the words are different. And when you translate to English, you have to borrow certain words from English, right? So in English, you would talk about mind, awareness, consciousness. These are the labels, but you have to understand what this means, right? So from a strict Nalanda Buddhist point of view, standard Nalanda Buddhist point of view, mind is an entity which is very empirical. So if I ask, okay, can you recollect the most vivid and happy moment you had as a child? And most of you should be able to recollect at least one or more experiences as a child, right? And then if somebody puts you under a fMRI and you're recollecting this, so they can probably see the brain correlate of it and say, okay, this person is experiencing a pleasant feeling, and this part of the brain, which is responsible for memory, is being activated. Can they vividly tell exactly what you're experiencing in that recollection? Probably not. But you as a first person can vividly tell that, hey, I'm experiencing this. When I was a child, this happened, that happened, and that made me very happy. Right? So this mind is something very empirical, right? It's, you don't need a third person science or an instrument to tell. And this is, mind is something which is non-material. You can experience it. There's no material per se. Material, I mean substance, physical substance per se to it, right? So, for example, whatever screen that you're seeing in front of you, that screen ultimately is made of some atoms. You can go beyond atoms also, but for now, let's say atoms. And these atoms, if you track back, at least you'll be able to track back to 15 billion, whenever the Big Bang happened. And let's not get into multiple Big Bang, at least the Big Bang that was responsible for our Earth today and where we exist. So you can track back that atom if you had that ability. Science does not have that ability, that what atom came from where, but logically you can conclude this. So it's not that out of the blue the atoms came, right? There's a continuity of matter. The atom of the Big Bang, there was a plasma, some atoms were formed, then, galaxies were very hot, they started cooling, multiple times, some stars exploded, a star called sun evolved, and then the planets around it evolved, millions of years gone. So you can track like that, right? So you have matter which can only come into origin from the previous matter or previous energy. Matter and energy are interchangeable. So there is no difference between mind. Mind can only come from previous moment of mind. And that is something that once you start studying psychology, once you start studying, what this entity mind is, that I can experience myself, then you start getting that conviction, that mind and matter, it's not that from matter mind can emerge or from mind matter. They can influence each other. But, from a cause and effect perspective, it's literally impossible. It's literally impossible, right? So this could be one way of getting conviction that mind and matter is, and this could be also one way to get conviction that mind is an entity which can last for a very long time. We may not be able to believe it right now for some of you who are attending for the first time, but this would be a good way to start, and then, this Buddha nature or this seed of perfection makes more sense. If you say, hey, it's only this life, and then what would I do with Buddha nature in one life? Is it possible to get access and full potential to Buddha nature? Yeah, it's possible, if the effort should be that high, from your side. If you make like ordinary effort, then one life is not sufficient. Very famous story, Tibetans would know, Jetsun Miller Repa. He attained Buddhahood in a single lifetime. So that is the level of effort. If it's possible, then, basically he sat on, one of his disciples, I think towards his end, asked him that uh, what kind of lesson do you have for me? And he actually showed his rear side because it was full of blisters, right? He said, this is the effort I made. So my message to you is that make effort. So if you're willing to make that kind of effort, then one life is sufficient. If you're willing to make like normal amount of effort that ordinary people like me make, then one life is not sufficient. And then how do I get conviction about rebirth? That's a separate topic, because an intro course in one day to cover Buddha nature, I think it's quite difficult. But I'm touching certain areas which I think later on other, my classmates who are going to speak about, they will come and talk about it. If it's little too much, then that's fine. So, Buddha nature, Geshe taught in NDC way towards the end. It was, I think, the 80th topic out of 84th, right? So then the whole ground was set. Here, it's very difficult because the ground is just Four Noble Truths. So anyway, I have to do whatever opportunity I've been given. So I'm trying to touch that. So, and people who don't believe in rebirth, And if you come with this argument, hey, science has not proven rebirth. I agree that science has not proven rebirth. His Holiness Geshe-la often says this, but science has not even disproven rebirth. If it is difficult to prove rebirth through science, it's more difficult to disprove rebirth through science. In one of the talks, His Holiness very openly said, if science can prove it decisively that rebirth does not exist, I will accept what science says. He's thrown that challenge. I will accept it, he says. Right? So if somebody comes from the science background, then one should be objective. Right? That is a hallmark of being a scientist, that you have an open mind and you're objective. You can't start saying that, hey, science said rebirth does not exist. Prove it. Right? So at least if you don't believe in it because you come from a very modern educated background like me, and you believe science to be a stronger side in you, then look for scientific clues saying that, okay, where science has proven there's no rebirth. Right? That becomes your starting ground. Then you can say, science has not proven it. Right? And then at least we are talking on a little open ground. Okay. So now going back to Buddha nature, I'll have to introduce a little more technical thing before I go into divisions of Buddha nature, which I think we've not even covered in the current LDC, but I think it would be a good idea to cover that. So Buddha taught one of the things which is 4 seals, which will get covered later. And the first seal is all composite things are impermanent. Now, in a day-to-day sense, the word impermanent has a connotation which does not last, right? So, but in a strict philosophical sense, or if you go a little more detail, then impermanence literally means anything which is going under momentary change. If you analyze, then it's going momentary change, right? So of course, when Buddha said all composite things are impermanent, Buddha did not say everything is impermanent. This is again, you go to certain Buddhist talks or even certain books which are well acclaimed authors I've read, and there it's mentioned Buddha said everything is impermanent. It's completely wrong. Buddha never said it, and you can also come to that conclusion yourself. If you study a little bit, it's not everything is impermanent. All composite things means it's made of some other thing, it's composed of something. So if you were to explain this to simply to people who are not introduced to any kind of philosophy or something, one thing that we can confidently say, all our senses, 5 senses that we interact with, the objects of 5 senses are always impermanent, at least for ordinary beings. I'm qualifying for ordinary beings, right? So, and on the counterpart, permanent is something that does not go under momentary change. Okay, if everything was impermanent, we would have a big problem. That Buddha, after becoming a Buddha, the qualities of Buddha, obviously they are impermanent, but there are certain qualities of Buddha's mind which, they don't go under change. There are certain qualities, and we have to touch this because we have to do divisions of Buddha nature. So qualities of Buddha. So for example, I can give a very simple example just to explain permanent and impermanent. Like for example, this phone in my hand, right? Do you agree? Obviously, I can't do it practically, but theoretically, if I were to hold this phone for like this for 10 years, it's gonna, something will change automatically without me doing anything. Do you agree? 10 years is sufficient. Even 5 years is sufficient. Probably in the battery, some liquid will start coming. Even if I don't charge it, discharge it, right? I don't know if anybody has kept an old mobile phone. I have an old mobile phone, which I am yet to discard in my drawer, and some liquid was coming on its own, right? So it looks like pretty toxic green color liquid is coming. So anyway, so I'm pretty sure some changes start happening. So we agree this is undergoing a momentary change, which our eyesight cannot see. It's not that after 10 years suddenly things will change. Every moment there is a change happening. Every moment there's a change happening. Right? Now I'm going to remove this phone. In my hand, I'm going to ask what is there. So probably people who are not from NDC, NMC, I can only see Tenzin Yeshila. Tenzin Yeshila, what is in my hand now?
You show me, sir, properly. Nothing, sir. Oh, now it's found.
I had the phone. Now the phone is gone.
Yes.
So what is in my hand?
Oh, it's empty.
Sorry? It's
Empty.
empty. Now it's empty.
Empty.
Yeah,
Yes.
empty. Okay, there's nothing in my hand, right? So is there absence of phone in my hand, Tenzilla? Would you agree?
Physical.
There is
At the,
absence of phone. Absence of phone in my hand. Would you agree?
yes.
Okay. So
At the
this,
present.
yes. So this absence of phone, even for 10 years, if I can hold my hand like this, will always remain the absence of, provided my hand remains, which I doubt. But anyway, so this absence of phone will remain. Do you agree, Tenzin and everybody? Does anybody disagree to this, that the absence of phone, right? So the phone, 10 years, moment by moment changing. This is one scenario. Absence of phone in my hand, no change going on, right? So this is what I mean, just an introduction, that the absence of phone is considered a non-composite phenomenon, which does not undergo momentary change. A composite phenomena is something that undergoes momentary change. So that's just a basic, very basic, about. The synonyms again can be impermanent phenomena and permanent phenomena. Right? In day-to-day language, the connotations are very different. Right? For example, like United Nations, you have permanent members. Right? So that doesn't mean it's eternal. UN also can disappear. There could be a new body that can come and UN can become like defunct, United Nations. It can happen. But in a day-to-day language, you would say there's a permanent member, right? But here in strict philosophy, permanent phenomena are something which do not undergo change, and impermanent which undergo change. There is something, so we leave it here right now. There are certain nuances to that will become too much. For now, it will become too much, but I think we can talk about that later. So why did I introduce this? Because Buddha nature is classified into two. One is proliferating Buddha nature, and the other is natural Buddha nature. Okay? Proliferating Buddha nature and natural Buddha nature. Proliferating Buddha nature, we touched earlier when I said, do you believe you have good quality? Any good qualities? And the answer was yes. Do you believe those good qualities, if worked upon and with the right factors, can increase? Yes. If there's an inspiration, guidance, then yes. So our current state of mind, which is not perfect right now, which is a very ordinary level, that is called which has the potential to become Buddha's mind. That is called proliferating Buddha nature. Now, this proliferating Buddha nature is like the water of Yamuna, which is dirty. It has the intrinsic nature of purity. This intrinsic nature of purity of the proliferating Buddha nature is the natural Buddha nature. Let me repeat that. The nature, the true nature of this proliferating Buddha nature, which is the defiled mind, the true nature of proliferating Buddha nature is the natural Buddha nature. And this true nature is permanent. It's not impermanent. And this true nature that you have, I have, and a Buddha has, there is no difference whatsoever. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. You can't say that purity of Antarctica water Yamuna water, Ganges water is different. The purity of water is same, right? And this is the basis for Buddha. He was a revolutionary of his time, right? Where he spoke about against the caste system. He himself was from a royalty, yet so many of his disciples were from the lowest caste, right? He spoke about gender equality. He spoke about so many issues. Why? Because he was fully convinced and he was a fully developed form of Buddha nature, fully manifest Buddha nature, Buddha himself, right? So basically, if you get conviction in this Buddha nature, I am 100% confident. I'm yet to adopt this in my life, but theoretically speaking, I'm 100% confident that your outlook in life will change. And if world leaders, if people in power, if they get this conviction in Buddha nature, again, there's nothing Buddhism about this. It's your own mind's potential, which if you work on without any biases, without any gender discrimination, without any race, nationality, anybody can fully awaken their mind, right? So the proliferating, coming back to the natural Buddha nature, the natural Buddha nature is the purity of the mind that we all have right now. It's not fully manifest, but we can't deny, like any dirty water you pick, can you deny that this water has purity of water? You can't. The purity of water doesn't come from outside. That dirty water itself has that purity. All one has to do is remove the dirt and the water. Similarly, our mind is defiled with the defilements. All we have to do is remove the defilements and the purity will manifest on its own. Right? Now, easier said than done, right? But this is the reality. What choice do we have, right? If we don't work on it, all kind of strange things will happen. COVID will happen, wars will happen, we will lose the near dear ones, sickness can happen anytime. Just Google once in a while. I would say not too much, it can be depressing. According to medical science, again, Tenzin lies from medical science, for example, the diseases documented for major organs, right? All the kidney diseases in the world, you document, you will find authentic medical pages with the name of the disease, what they're called. Diseases of the brain, diseases of the heart, diseases of the blood, blah, 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 blah. You just do that once in a while, and you will be surprised the number of diseases in the world, right? And then everything is not documented, right? So again, this is not, I'm not saying it to make our life depressed. I'm saying these are the harsh realities that we can face anytime. And the sooner we realize, sooner we will use the opportunity that we have. Otherwise, it becomes a wasted opportunity. In hindsight, everybody is wise. Hindsight, everybody is wise. A genuine wise person is that who can foresee problems and can do something about it. Foreseeing problems and not being able to do about things, we all will be super depressed. What's the point of foreseeing problem when you can't do anything about it? If there are problems in future and they cannot be rectified, then I will say just don't think about it, which is the modern outlook, right? Why should I think about it? But if there are problems which you can do something about it, then why not, right? If we have faced lockdown, did we not stock up things at our home? If we knew in our city, in our country, okay, from 2 days from now onwards, you'll have a lockdown, did we not buy things in advance? Right? If the answer is yes, then you are preparing for, avoiding suffering of future that you can foresee. Similarly, these other sufferings you can work on, right? That is a conviction. So we work in a very, I would say, contradictory fashion. Although we say we want to be happy, but if we analyze our own actions, our own thought processes, we work in a very contradictory way. Very, very contradictory way. If we work in a compatible way, which Buddha taught in terms of happiness, then obviously we start becoming happier and happier. That's a natural causality. Okay, so I think I did well in terms of the time. I thought I will overshoot. So I would invite few questions, and I think I did. I'm going to take this opportunity since I asked Dolmala for 10 minutes, so we can extend it for 10-15 minutes. We'll not end at 7:30, provided people have questions, right? Yes, question please. I think Mr. Khanna asked a written question. Mr. Khanna, are you still there? No, I think he left. Oh, he's still there.
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Yes, Mr. Khanna, how are you doing? Good to see you in the talk.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead. What's your question?
Pardon?
I think you wrote a question in the chat. So do you want to raise something related to that?
You know that your talk was excellent, but the point is just listening to this talk will not take us anywhere. It will not bring any change in nature. So practice is the main thing, that you have to tread the path enunciated by Lord Buddha. So in that path, there are two components. One is calm abiding, which is, let us say, through anapansati, and then vipassana.
Okay.
The only thing that can take care of our negativities is vipassana, where through body sensations, these our negative states, they are uprooted, and I have seen it happening. I have
Okay.
been practicing vipassana for almost 35 years now.
Okay.
I've been a very impatient man, but I found that after 3 camps of 10 days each, my body was, all over oozing and all that. But then healing takes place by itself, and the impatience is gone. But
Okay. Wonderful.
but the root is still there. The root is still there, but it can flower anytime.
Okay, so let me address that. Thank you, Mr. Khanna, for bringing this important point. So this often comes, what Mr. Khanna is saying, okay, talks and these kind of studies are not so helpful. Finally, it's the practice. Agreed. But again, let me bring a very simple example. Again, I'm going to go to our future, should I say future Dr. Tenzin Yeshi. You're studying medicine, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So somebody wants to benefit beings as a doctor. You can't jump to a hospital and say, hey, okay, let me go to the hospital and straight away go into an operation theater room. Not possible. Right? So if you have to do, if you want to become a surgeon, then you track back. You have to do a super specialization. Let's say if I want to become a knee surgeon. So before that, I'll have to do orthopedic, and that to specialization. Before that, I'll have to do internship. Before that, MBBS. I'm talking about the Indian system. I don't know about the Western system. In America, probably you'll have to give exams to get a doctor's certificate, to become a medical doctor, right? So, so similarly, if you really want to transform your mind, you have to, yes, if you track back that Buddha became Buddha because, Prince Siddhartha became Buddha because of meditation. How come he was able to meditate? Because there are 3 levels of wisdom: wisdom of learning, wisdom of reflection, and wisdom of meditation. So until unless you know what meditation, in simple words in English, is a very, very big misnomer. Meditation in Sanskrit, the word is bhavna, and it has nothing to do with Hindi bhavna. In Hindi, bhavna means feeling, but the Sanskrit, the etymology is bhav, to become. In Tibetan, the word is gom, which is familiarization. You have to familiarize, right? So if I don't know what I have to familiarize with, what I'm going to meditate on? Impossible, right? So you need, and then you can only meditate when you have conviction. Like I said in the initial part of my talk, Buddha never said just follow me blindly, because Buddha is saying so, or Buddha or Mr. Khanna is saying, hey, it's finally the practice. It doesn't work like that. One should be convinced. Right? So one should be convinced that, yes, this is what makes sense. Person doesn't join MBBS without conviction. No, I want to become a doctor. I'll study. I'll do this. Once the conviction is there, then only they take, admission in a medical school or a medical college, right? So you need wisdom of learning. So when these talks are given, and the label of this talk, Mr. Khanna, is not become Buddha today. The label of these series is Intro to Buddhism. So the context is very clear. We are just giving an introduction, right? So in introduction, obviously certain topics will be touched. There are a variety of people I can see. There are some from NMC, some who are listening to such a talk for the first time. They're my personal friends, like Sanjeev, I know. He's from my college. He's probably hearing on a Buddhism talk for the first time. So we have to cater for everybody. So there's a wisdom of learning, there's wisdom of reflection. Reflection is something where you get your conviction, and then wisdom of meditation. And the other thing that you bring up is the Vipassana meditation, which is sensation. It is excellent, Goenkaji's, but it's a very small portion of what Buddha taught. Extremely small portion of Buddha taught. You're just being aware about sensations, feelings, and mindfulness, right? Vipassana, the way Goenkaji's Vipassana was used, and in the Nalanda Vipassana used, the meanings are very different, although the same level. Goenkaji's Vipassana is excellent. I know so many friends have done it, but Vipassana, literally, the translation in Sanskrit is seeing beyond the ordinary, right? And it's used for, emptiness. So Vipassana, when a person gets the access to emptiness directly, there is a union of a very, very concentrated mind and somebody who's learned concepts of emptiness and then is able to get access to emptiness directly. That's when the real transformation happens, right? So mindfulness meditation, again, I'm throwing a warning. In the modern day world, it's used very, very, there are people who minting money out of it. Nothing wrong if you get benefit out of it. But again, it's a very narrow outlook. If you want transformation of the mind, then you have to study, you have to reflect, and like Mr. Khanna is saying, you have to practice, right? But if you have to practice, you have to go steps backwards also. You have to do study and reflection, then only your practice would be useful. Okay. All right. Thank you for the question, Mr. Khanna. Next question. Yeah, Sanjeev. Go ahead, Sanjeev.
Can I make a comment?
Sorry, Mr. Khanna.
Yeah, Mr. Sanjeev, could you just...
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, if it's a short one, Mr. Khanna.
Yeah, this state of emptiness, the glimpses will come and all that when you meditate and all that. Of course, you must understand the principles. I will request you to listen to my talk where I've given the link, and then let us interact.
Sure. Okay, thank you. All right. Yeah, Sanjeev, go ahead.
Good evening. I am Sanjeev Tren. Presently, I am located at Jamnagar, Gujarat, India. So I would like to ask, when we do meditation, how the time of the day affects the quality of meditation? Can you throw some light?
So you let me understand your question, that your quality of meditation that you've observed depends on which part of the day you meditate on. Is that what you're asking, Sanjeev?
That's why sometimes I feel that if you do early morning, maybe 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, up to 6 o'clock, it will have certain quality. And
may I ask what kind of meditation are you doing? What kind of meditation are you doing, Sanjeev?
Actually, I'm following Sri Ravi Shankar, what they are telling, and apart from them, I listen to chantings.
Okay, all right. So I haven't followed anything about Sri Ravi Shankar, but what I can broadly tell you, meditation falls into two categories. One class of meditation is to build your concentration or single pointedness. And one class of meditation is what is called analytical meditation, where you analyze. For example, in my talk, when we were talking about anger, let's say, right? So we can do an analytical meditation on demerits of anger, right? So that is the analytical meditation. For example, interdependence, then we spoke about emptiness, but obviously to be able to meditate on emptiness, you should receive some amount of teaching, and then the highest level of compassion that one can develop is bodhicitta. Again, there are systematic steps to develop bodhi. These are all class of meditation which are analytical meditation, and there are class of meditation which are single pointed meditation. For example, I don't know, in Sri Ravi Shankar, or for example, you can just meditate on your breath. Breath is your object and your mind is the subject, so you're just focusing on the breath, right? So these are the two classes of meditation, and I agree with you. Depending on the person, depending on the circumstances, the day or time of the day can affect your meditation. You have to know your own body, because end of the day, you have to take care of the body. So if you are, for example, not a early morning person, to say this that hey, early morning is the best time to meditate, it would be a wrong statement. There are people I know, it's very difficult for them to wake up in the morning, maybe because of medicines or other reasons. Of course, you can train yourself, but if you're starting new and you're kind of person that hey, I can't wake up before 6:30, and then you hear some talk saying that 4 a.m. is the best time to do meditation, probably it will be counterproductive. Because you try and wake up at 4 a.m. and you just try and meditate and you're like dozing off. What's the point? Right? So you have to know the factors, good sleep, good health, amount of food that you eat, kind of food that you eat. It should be nutritious food. If you eat like a heavy dinner and then expect to wake up at 4 a.m., probably not very good idea. It won't work, right? If you follow certain, exercising routine, if you're following that, you feel a certain level of energy in the body after you exercise regularly. So those are all the factors that will decide. But yes, in general, you're right that there are certain times of meditation. If you start new, the advice given is that keep your meditation sessions short. Don't like start with like, okay, I'll do meditation for 30 minutes. Do like a 3-minute, 4-minute session. Take a break of 2-3 minutes, and you can do another 3-4 minute session. Don't do like a long session, right? So those are the general guidelines given. And again, one more important thing that you have to remember about meditation is that you have to follow. There is no good or bad meditation. You can be good or bad at following instructions. For example, if the meditation instruction is that okay, you decide that for next 3 minutes I'll wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I'll probably freshen up, and then 3 minutes I'll do meditation on the breath, right? You try focusing on your mind on the breath, but your mind gets distracted. Then you have to bring your mind back to the breath, which is your object of meditation. If you notice your distraction and you allow your distraction, then that's a bad meditation. But in that 3 minutes, if you can only meditate for 3 seconds on the breath, but you did your sincere effort, that's a good meditation. No issues. Because that 3 seconds over a period of time, if you put effort, then only it'll become 5 seconds, 10 seconds. But to start with this expectation for whole 3 minutes, my mind will be on the object, breath all the time, that's a pretty high expectation and it won't work, right? So there's no point I'm saying is that also not only the time, but you have to structure your meditation properly, and you have to know that you have to follow whatever Sri Ravi Shankar is given the instructions. You have to follow that sincerely. If during that session you're following that instruction properly, it's a good meditation. Okay, does it answer your question, Sanjeev? All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Vishla, I think there is a question in the chat box.
In the chat box?
Yeah. Can you please furnish some tips and steps on combining the aspects of both methods of bodhicitta?
Let me read that. Oh, that's Sonam Rigzinla. Okay. Can you please furnish some tips and some combining both aspects of... Okay, so we've not covered bodhicitta today, but I think Sonam Rigzinla, since you're asking, and there are many people who are from Nalanda courses. So, if you are aware, there's a combined method. And I would say that I am not a monastic, so you don't have to address me venerable, Sonam Rigzinla. I'm still an ordinary person. Okay. So there is a combined method. Rigzinla, are you there? I think Rigzinla already left. Okay, so Rigzinla, if you're on YouTube listening, probably you can email to PC at Tibet House, and I can take care of your answer via email since you're not here. That would be more better. I mean, that would be more appropriate. Okay. All right. Do we have? I think Sanjeev is asking a question. Can we take one more question?
Yeah, I feel like.
Okay. All right. Sanjeev, go ahead, Sanjeev.
I've written in chat also. Do we need to learn Tibetan language to learn about Buddhism and about Buddha's nature?
The answer would be no. I think you probably attended one of the talks of my own teacher and director of Tibet House, Venerable Geshe Dorji Dandol. He's all our courses of Nalanda courses are taught in English, and he very clearly says that if you sincerely study in English, it's possible to become a Buddha. Right? Do you want to learn Buddhism, or do you want to be like 100% happy? What's your priority, Sanjeev?
100% happy.
100% happy. So that's possible in English. Okay. So if you want to learn Tibetan Buddhism, then yeah, then you have to learn Tibetan, right? So if you want to be 100% happy, there are so many friends here from our Nalanda courses. Some of them are learning Tibetan. I know they're joining the Tibetan courses, but not necessary. I only know very limited Tibetan dharma terms, but I can be, if I can give a talk today after learning things directly from Venerable Geshe in English and FPMT also in English, then yeah, at least I won't say I'm 100% happy, but at least I'm much better than what I was before. Okay, but nothing wrong in learning Tibetan. Tibetan is a beautiful language. There are certain nuances which, since you are Indian, you probably know, and you're following Sri Ravi Shankar, you can often check. Every language has its own beauty. There are certain things which you can express so beautifully in English, and it's not possible with the same level of emotion attached in other language. Similarly, there are certain things which are so beautifully, concisely presented in Tibetan and in Sanskrit, which in translation often gets missed. So if there is a good teacher who understands philosophy very well, the other thing is that how Tibetan is spoken in day-to-day language and Tibetan dharma. The Tibetan dharma language, they are quite different. So the connotations are very different, right? So it depends that there are certain people I know who are learning Buddhism, but they want to become translators. They want to know each and every nuance. So if that aspect is also included in 100% happiness, then you'll have to learn Tibetan. But just if you're focusing that, okay, I want to, be 100% happy and fearless, then English is fine. English is fine because there are a number of resources available now are quite authentic and quite good. I don't know if 40 years ago I could say that, but now at least, you have many resources which are very genuine and correct information is there. Okay. All right.
I want to pay my gratitude and thanks, sir, for the wonderful talk.
Okay, thank you, Anaya. I think I should thank all my teachers for that. So thank you. So yes, Mark, go ahead, Mark.
Veshla, good to see you. We are wishing your family and you, all peace and health. It's good to see you. I think in the chat there's some questions about the proliferating Buddha nature and the natural, what is it? Natural Buddha nature. So are those impermanent and permanent?
Yes, natural Buddha nature is permanent. I think TP Law from Singapore most likely. I think if I am not mistaken, natural Buddha nature and proliferating Buddha nature is impermanent. If proliferating Buddha nature was not impermanent, we are in big trouble. Proliferating Buddha nature is our defiled mind, which will become Buddha's mind. If it could not change, then we never can become Buddha. Right? So proliferating Buddha nature is, by definition, is the defiled mind, which will become Buddha's mind. And it has this quality, and since you have studied emptiness, it being empty of objective existence, and those people who this is little alien, just ignore. But Mark being from NDC2, NDC3, and he's going to join NMC, I know, So the emptiness of the proliferating Buddha nature is the natural Buddha nature. And that existed even before Prince Siddharth became Buddha. Right? Your mind, there's no difference of emptiness of your mind, my mind, and Buddha's mind. Emptiness is same. That is the natural Buddha nature. Okay, does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I have one more quickly, if I may.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The active seeds. The active means that the karma has ripened or is ripening, and inactive means the karma has not ripened. Is that true or no?
Well, usually active seeds, it's ripening, it has the potential to ripen. For example, afflictive obscurations, it's contaminated karma, afflictions, and the active seeds of the two, right? So if somebody achieves this state of fearlessness, they've got rid of afflictive obscuration, the seeds become inactive. They do not have potential for an arhat, a person who has achieved this state of fearlessness and removed afflictive obscuration. He or she, there is no potential left for the anger, jealousy to arise, right? So, I mean, the terminologies again, what this is related to what Sanjeev asked in terms of, do we need to learn Tibetan? The Tibetan terminologies might help. So, I think the Tibetan word is bhakcha. So you would, in English translation, the translations are different: seeds, potency, potential, latency. These are English words. But like cognitive obscuration, these are inactive seeds. They do not have the potential to give rise to an active state of anger. Not possible. It's like the example given is like if you burn the seed, it's still a seed, but it's a burned seed. It cannot give rise to a sapling or something. Right? Does it answer your question?
Yes, and so inactive, it still has the capacity to obscure.
Yes, it has the capacity to obscure, and for that we have to study in detail what exactly it means by cognitive obscuration. That's a more subtle question, right? But it by just the label inactive means it cannot give rise to afflictions and contaminated karma. That's not possible. But still, it's blocking the person's mind to become omniscient. By definition, if somebody has cognitive obscuration, they're not Buddha. He or she is not a Buddha. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for your wishes. Hopefully, I'll be joining group discussion soon if things settle down a little bit at home. Okay. All right. Sanjeev, you have a last question. Your hand is raised. Are you done? Done. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Domala. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Domala.
Yeah, thank you, Divishla. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, and which is in a very practical and in a very simple way to understand such huge topic. So I have understood so much. Thank you very much personally, and also I hope that our audience have gathered the same knowledge and more than that received from you. Thank you very much, and thank you very much again for giving us your time with this hectic schedule, despite all of it. And thank you very much to all the participants who joined today's session. And the next session is on 10th May, on Tuesday, 10th May. And the topic would be summary on Buddhist psychology by Dr. Puja, Assistant Professor at Department of Buddhist and Tibetan Studies in Sikkim. Thank you very much. Thank you, Divishla, again. And
all right. Okay. And before we go, I think if you can just share the short dedication, so since I think most people are from, so since we spoke about karma, any act that we do, we gathered today is, we should have set a very wholesome motivation in the beginning, that why you are listening to such a talk, like I want to improve myself, be more helpful, be more kind, or the best motivation would be that such a talk, may I become a Buddha for benefit of all sentient beings. So similarly, when we end a session, we dedicate. So all this positive energy, we are trying to seal towards a more wholesome, more positive goal, right? So, maybe we can do a short dedication, page 69 of Blaze, and share. I think I have the sharing. Let me do the sharing, Dumala. 1 second.
Divishla, shall I share? I got it.
You got it? Okay, so I'm going to transfer. You take over the sharing? Yeah. You share. Okay, so thank you all for joining, and then let's dedicate all the merit or the virtue that we as a group today, together, we collected. I dedicate the merit thus gathered towards the realization and deeds and prayers of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of 3 times, and to the upholding of the doctrine of scriptures and insight. Yeah. May in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the 4 wheels of Mahayana vehicle, and accomplish all the stages of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the 2 stages. From my 2 collections, vast as space, that I've amassed from working with effort at this practice for great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom is blinded by ignorance. Thank you. Thank you. See you soon, all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.
You.
Divishla. Thank you, Divishla.
Thank you, Divishla.
Thank you, Divishla.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Divishla.
Can you send Deepesh email to me?
Mr. Khannaji, could you just send me an email to me?
You have my email. bmkhanna@gmail.com.
Okay. Okay, I'll direct to you then. I'll request Divishla before sending you the email address of him.
Okay.
Mr. Khannaji. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you.